Hey guys, I just hung out with Christina Farley, author of the Dream Heist. This was a really great interview. She's killing it on the Kindle Vella. She's constantly in the top 20, sometimes as high as like 8, or she's been really low in that field. She's also got a hit series of books and a huge reader following. She talks all over the country at schools. She's just killing it everywhere. So make sure you hit like and subscribe. Lots of cool interviews coming up, including Queen of Horror, Naomi Alt, will be on next week. So hit that subscribe button right now and enjoy the interview. Thank you so much for being here. I know you have a busy schedule, and I know that because I feel like I have no time in the day writing for Vella, doing the YouTube videos, and being a parent. And you do all those things and then some. You're like all over the place. You're on Discord, you have a book series, you go to schools and do speaking events, you're traveling all over the world. It's really awesome to see. So thank you for being here.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
One of the reasons I was excited to do an interview with you is because I think that you and I share a similar philosophy when it comes to the writing community, which is reach out, connect with other people, and try and be a positive force and just always be uplifting. And you really have that positive attitude that it just puts everyone else in a good mood and makes them excited for their writing journey. So that's really
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, that is so true. Like, that's kind of my passion. I started out as a teacher and trying to have impact on kids' lives. And now I'm writing, still having an impact on kids' lives, but I also love teaching still. And that desire to help other people is still there for me. And that's like one of my greatest joys is finding ways to help other people be successful and connecting with people. Like, I love that about writing and the writing community is I get to meet people like you and your viewers that I would never have gotten a chance to meet. So this is, the writing has really launched me to be able to meet people I've never been able to meet and experience things I've never been able to experience before. And I'm just so very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I watch your YouTube videos, and it's so cool because I think that your YouTube videos are done in a way where they're speaking to a younger audience of like maybe like high school kids or younger who want to get into writing, which is great because you're like developing this next generation of writer. But what's really awesome about it is that I'm 42 and I find it useful. So it
So
really is
glad.
it goes for everybody.
I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, I guess when I first started writing, there wasn't a lot out there for resources. I feel like there's more resources now, but I had to learn a lot of the skills just by trial and error and studying other authors, their books, and stuff like that. So if I can make someone else's journey easier than my journey was, I mean, that's great. That's what I want.
And reading a little bit about your journey on your website, I think that a lot of writers who are starting out share a similar experience, not quite as cool as yours, because it says that you had a writing group in the fourth grade, and you sent out your first submission when you was it 10? Was that what it?
Yes.
That's awesome. That is awesome. But I've been writing since I was a kid too, and I didn't start trying to publish till I was 42. And it was
Wow.
kind of similar in that I think you said it was like your bucket list. You were like, I've always wanted to write a book, so I'm going to write a book. And it was a
Yeah.
huge hit, by the way.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, it's funny how the journey life takes you and the unexpected turns that you have. And I feel like looking back when I was 10 and I had given up on my writing because I got a rejection for it and I took it very personally. I take things sometimes very like, oh, I'm a terrible writer. What was I thinking? I should give up. But because I became a teacher from that, long story, I had other experiences that I would never have experienced if I hadn't been a teacher. Like I got to teach in Indonesia for 2 years and then in Korea for 8 years and experience other cultures and people that I would never have before. So I'm just really grateful for that. And then my students were a big inspiration for me to start writing again. And I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't had those experiences. So sometimes I just feel like you just got to take life hits you with good and bad things, and you take those things and make the best out of them. And as writers, we can totally do that. We can take the bad things in our life and like, okay, I'm gonna channel this. I remember I got one really mean parent got on the phone with me and was blasting me out of the water because her child got a B instead of an A. And I was like, oh my goodness. But I remember being upset about that. And I'm like, I'm just gonna write a fight scene. So I wrote one of the best fight scenes I have ever written. I'm like, yes, I got that all out. And that's the great thing about writing is we can really channel our experiences and our emotions and our feelings. And it's very therapeutic in a lot of ways.
I like that. So it's kind of just, you roll with the punches and you let life take you where it's going to take you and then use that.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. So this channel, I try and, as a new author myself, help other new authors by learning with me and talking to experts and talking to people like you who've been successful and know the ropes a little bit. And I want to get into that, and I want to get into your experience on Vella, and talk about the Dream Heist a little bit. But before we do, as I said, I was looking at your website earlier, and you have this little sheet about facts about you. And
Oh,
I don't want to go through all of them, but there's a couple in there that I thought were just so interesting. I wanted to ask you a little bit about them.
yeah. Okay.
So you lived in a log cabin.
Yes, I grew up in a log cabin.
You grew up in a log cabin.
For a number of years, yes.
Was it like a real log cabin? Like
We had running water, so it's not like it was like really remote, but it was a real log cabin, and we had a little pond outside. I feel like I had a very idyllic childhood. So like I got my first pair of skates, and because it was up in New York, upstate New York, and I got to learn on the pond how to ice skate. Got to fish in that pond. It was my first fishing with my dad. So yeah, we had it was kind of a rural, in a sense, experience, but it was great. I enjoyed it.
That's
I
awesome.
don't live in a log cabin anymore, though. Just a normal house. Kind of boring.
I think that's my dream house is to have like a really modern, beautiful big house, but that is a log cabin on the outside.
Yes, I would love that. That would be awesome.
Very separated from the world in the middle of the woods. It would just be perfect.
Very inspirational for a writer, right?
Yes. And on this list, you have a lot of places you've been because you're very well traveled. So just a couple of those. You lived in a haunted house in Indonesia. You lived somewhere where you had a samurai warrior guarding your house.
Yes.
And you climbed the Great Wall of China while you were pregnant.
That is true too.
And
every one of those is a story. Yes.
Yeah, they're all novels in the making.
They are. And I'm very I love adventure. And you're going to find that in all the pieces of my writing. And a lot of it is like in life. I like to just seize the day. I like to enjoy life. Like there's so much out there in the world, and I want to enjoy it and experience it. So my husband and I did. I'm like, okay, I'm pregnant, but that's okay. Let's go do it. My husband had Caleb, our oldest, in the backpack, and I was pregnant with our youngest, and we hiked the Great Wall of China, which was amazing. We actually took a good portion of it. We took by train to this one section, and we didn't speak Chinese. And so we had to have like our little translator book. This is before, most of we have internet and stuff like that. And we would be like trying to translate with people and trying to find our way through, the city, and then find a driver to take us out to the Great Wall. So just getting there was a bit of an adventure too, but it was an amazing experience.
That's awesome. And I just have to ask about one more because my 5-year-old son will be so mad if I don't ask about this.
Okay.
You danced in Cinderella's castle?
Yes, on the castle. Yes. So I can't really say what I did, but I wore a gold dress. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
And it was in a show.
It was in a show?
I used to work at Disney.
Oh, okay.
I was the helper for the princesses.
That's incredible.
That's what we would call it. So I can't really say more than that, but which inspired my book, The Princess and the Page.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my sister and I both worked for Disney and were the princess helpers. And we went over to France and did like a princess castle trip. And then while we were traveling the different castles, I came across one of the castles and I'm just like, oh, I just love this castle. I love everything about it so much. I'm going to write a book about it. And then the tour guide was looking at me like, okay, these Americans, I don't know about them. And I'm like, no, you watch, I'm going to write a book about it. And sure enough, I did, which was The Princess of the Page. And that's where that story was inspired from.
So let's talk about that a little bit. But before we get to The Princess and the Page, so you wrote your first book, and that became a very successful series of books. How did it start for you? Did you try and find an agent? What was the process for getting that first book out there?
Well, I had started writing with my students, and when I was living in Korea, I just felt, I don't know, there's something about the culture and the people of Korea was very inspirational for me. And I started writing. And I was doing little things like articles and stuff like that, just kind of playing around with like short fiction for kids. And then my students were very much unmotivated to do this work that I was trying to tell them to do, my middle schoolers. And I'm like, okay, so how about we're doing mythology and we were trying to write stories. I'm like, how about we put the two together and we'll do some Korean mythology because we're living in Korea. And, you can write a story and I will write a story with you in it. And then that will hopefully get you guys excited about this whole process. And they're like, okay, whatever. And so I wrote this story and then I'm like, oh, this is a really good story. It was Princess Yua and it was Hamusu and, the whole myth. And then I'm like, I'm going to keep writing this. And suddenly I found I had a full book. And I was writing other things at the time, but this story I was very passionate about. And I had a critique group. And Beth Revis, you might be familiar with her. She's also doing Vella as well. And she has amazing 2 Vella stories out that you should definitely check out. But we were in a critique group together and we were starting to do stories. And we were feeling really passionate about these. And I'm like, I'm going to do everything I can to get this story to find success. So I queried agents, finally found an agent to come upon, love the project as well. And then we sold the book within a few months. And my editor is amazing. I just love her. And then we ended up doing a whole trilogy, kind of maybe with the possibility of future books, which we've always back and forth if we're going to do more or not. So we just called it a series. And then there's also some kind of good news beyond that I'm not at liberty to share right now, but maybe more beyond just book format. So I'm excited.
Nice. That's awesome. So then from there, because those were young adult books,
Yes.
Correct? And then you wrote The Princess and the Page, which was for more middle school.
Yes.
Right? What made you decide to do that change?
Well, I had actually written that before Gilded. That was like a practice kind of a book. And it was just a mess. It was a train wreck. And I was too difficult. I'm like, this book is too hard. I can't handle it. This is like, I can't deal with it. So I called it my drawer novel. I just put it in the drawer and didn't think about it. And after the Gilded series was published, an editor at Scholastic reached out to my agent and she says, I love Christina's work. I read her Gilded series. I wish we had published it. It was really sweet of her. And she's like, does she have anything else that she would be interested? I really want to do a middle grade with her. And my agent's like, I'm sure she would have something. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And so we brainstormed. And I'm like, well, there's this one book about this girl who has the pen. When she writes with her pen, it brings stories to life. And he's like, why don't I know about this book? I'm like, because it's really difficult to write and it's a train wreck. And he's like, oh, I'm sure it's great. I'm like, no, it was not great. Trust me. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to revise it. And so I spent like months revising it. And it was just, it was a mess. So basically I looked at a chapter. I said, that's horrible. And then I just like rewrote it totally. But I kind of kept some of the characters, kept the base storyline, because that stuff was good. The concept was good, but the writing was not. And we gave it to the editor, Andrea Pickney, and she loved it. She bought it, and yay. So that's kind of the story behind that.
I like how it ends with a yay.
Yay.
So you wrote this successful series for young adult fiction, and then you wrote a middle grade book, which also did extremely well. What made you decide to try out Vella? in serial fiction?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of Beth. Like Beth, I'm gonna like blame everything on her today. She was like, I heard about this thing called Vella. What would you think about doing this? We could do this, do it together and we can make we made a Vella club with it. And so I reached out to my agent and I said, what do you think about this? And we talked about some different projects because I have some projects that are in the works that I'm working on right now, preparing for her. And I had this other idea about the Dream Heist. And I'm like, I'm super excited about this. I think it would work really well as a serial because I could kind of continue this long term story. And I had this concept. And she's like, you know what, let's do it. And so, yeah, that's kind of where that whole process came from. And I just, I've had good experiences with Amazon. Like Amazon Publishing with Skyscape published my Gilded series. And I had a great experience with that. I loved working with them. They're amazing. And I'm like, I would love to just do another thing that they're doing. Like I've been very happy with them in the past. And so Vella, it was. And I've been really excited about it. And it's been really good for me because I haven't brought out something in a while for my teen readers. And so this is another, like, a lot of people are waiting, like, when are you going to bring something out? So when I brought it out, everyone was super excited. And I'm like, yes. And so I have something for you. So that's been fun. And now I can write with them along the way. And I'm really enjoying it. It's a different kind of form of writing. But I love it because I can really connect with my readers in a different level than I could just in a book form. So I'm really enjoying it. And it's hard though. It's hard balancing because it takes me a long time I write my books very fast, but then it takes me a long time to revise them. So I finally got my manuscript to my agent this last weekend. And she's been asking me for this forever. And I'm like, it's coming, I promise. So I finally got that to her. Um, so hopefully she likes it. But yeah, so it's been hard. It's been a little bit difficult juggling the different projects and doing that, but I love writing. So it's cool.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, so the Dream Heist has gone up to as far as number 3 on all of Kindle Vella, and there's like over 10,000 series on there. It's consistently around the like top 15 stories.
Yeah.
And I would say generally the audience on there veers towards adult romance. So to have this young adult thriller that, not that it doesn't have any romantic elements to it, but a young adult thriller flying up the charts that way, it's cool. And I think that where Vella succeeds, that other platforms struggle with, is that they recognize the popularity of romance, but they don't push the other stuff to the side. So what did you do as a writer to help bring a young adult readership into the platform and kind of teach them the differences between what it is compared to
Yeah, and that's actually been hard. That's not been an easy thing. A lot of the teen readers that I have struggled with it, especially before it was put on some of the devices. They're like, how does this work? Well, how do I find the link? And a lot of them would reach out to me asking how to do that. So that was actually a difficulty and it was a roadblock. So I have a lot of teen readers who are reading it, which is great. And I'm so happy that they are. And I get fan mail from that. They send me pictures that they have made and stuff like that, which is really cool. But I'm also finding, ironically, and I found this with my Gilded series too, a lot of adults read my Gilded series, and a lot of my adults are reading the Dream Heist. And I think in part that has to do with that my cast of characters is not just teens. They are teens, but there's also adults there, and the teens are a little bit older. Like they're 17 they're 18, actually they're 18. So they're older teens and they are working in a working environment. So it kind of mimics real life for an adult. So I think that having other adults in the storyline and having teens that are older does reach older readers. So I'm finding a lot of older readers are reading it too. So I think that's a big advantage, is that I have a wide range of readers that can access the book and are enjoying it. And it's not just for females romance. There is romance, but Also, males can enjoy it because it's got the action, it's got the adventure, it's got the bombs, and which stuff I like. The explosions too are fun. So I think reaching a wide range of the audience really helped that, and that's something actually that when I do write books, I tend to think about my audiences. There's a book that I really love. It's called The $1,000,000 Outline, which I recommend. Farland is the author's name. And he talks about that, like building your cast of characters, like who is your audience, who you're writing to, and then how can you widen your audience as much as possible. He talks about like in Twilight is a good example. We have a young adult series, but there are adults in the story who have a big part of the storyline. And so people who are adults can identify with them. And so having that wide cast really just expands your audience, I feel like, which is helpful. I mean, I am just thrilled with anyone who reads my books and reads my stories. I'm just thrilled. So the whole thing is just like, I don't know, it's just been great. So I'm just like so happy. I'm like a big fan of Kindle Vella right now. And I'm just happy that people are able to find my stories and enjoy them and find love in reading too. So yeah.
When you write for Vella, because I've seen that you're a very big plotter. You're very big into the plotting. Do you
Yes.
find have you plotted out the entire series of the Dream Heist, or are you allowing yourself to wing it a little more because it's serialized and it can be so much bigger? And do you write ahead of time? Are you like ahead of schedule on your writing?
Right. So I did for the Dream Heist, the season one. That was very structured. That was very planned out. I had it all like sequenced out, and everything was much more structured. Season two, I didn't expect it to go so well. To be honest, I'm like I did not expect that in the slightest bit. Um, so I'm like, this is going well. I should just keep it going because I thought, well, maybe I should try another story. I have some other ideas, but this one is going well. I know my characters, I know my world. And so I have an idea of what I want to write. But it wasn't until we went to Peru. I went to Peru in November. Excuse me. And while we were there, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have some ideas that I could put for the Dream Heist being here. So I am having so much fun. I'm literally writing my episodes. I have a few in advance, right? But I'm writing them as I'm going. I kind of have an idea what I want, but I'm taking all the adventures that we had when we were in Peru and I'm putting them in the book. I'm like, I have never been able to do that before. Like to say, okay, I have this idea. I'm just going to put it in this book and it's about my whole, like, I mean, a lot of the things like Gilded series, it's definitely about my life. That's 100%. And The Princess of the Page is about my trip to France. But it's kind of fun to do it real time. Like I literally just went on that trip, in November and I'm putting it in my fiction now, which is so cool. I just love that. The whole concept. So, I mean, I kind of have some ideas. I need to talk to my agent and tell her some of my ideas for the future because we had to talk about it all. But I'm really liking this sci-fi thriller kind of thing, and I have another idea for a book. It's a big world as well, not another book, but another like serialized series. And I love this whole thing that I don't have to be restricted to a single like this is this novel and then this. I can really expand bigger. So I'm gonna ride the Dream Heist for a while till I'm feeling like I've told the story that needs to be told. And then I have some other ideas too of other stories. So I'm having so much fun. Yeah.
I find with my series, I do something similar where, like, literally a couple weeks ago, I was driving with my son, and I don't know even how we got to listening to it, but we started listening to Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus, and I was
Right.
like, you know what? Miley Cyrus is going in my story. So,
There you go.
so
See,
I don't know
isn't that
if that's
amazing?
my series, but my series has a lot of celebrity appearances. So I was
I
like, yeah,
love that.
she's going in the series. And so I do a lot of that too.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've struggled with is there's a lot of mystery to the story. Um, and early on, I don't think I was doling out enough because I knew that I wanted the series to go for a long time. So I wasn't giving answers like quick enough. I was like, I
Right.
know I want to give this later on. Did you find any kind of trouble with that, with balancing where you were going to be releasing nuggets? Because yours is a heist.
Yes.
So there's a lot of twists and turns.
There is, and I would say mystery. Mine's a heist, so there's a lot of like there's a lot of pieces that I'm having to plant in, and that's tricky. But plotting is my thing. Even when I'm not sitting down and actively doing plot, I'm still doing it in my head. But I think if you were doing a mystery, that would be even more difficult as a serial. Like unless you really like thought, okay, these are the episodes I want to do, and this episode I have to plant this clue here. That it'd be more difficult, I think. But yeah, it is definitely something like fortunately I've written a lot of novels. I have experience writing that has helped, and I've worked with editors who have helped me along the way, and my agent has helped me. And I've got great critique partners. So that does help kind of be able to plan in advance. But yeah, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. I'm like, oh my goodness, but it's kind of a thrill for me because I kind of put a challenge out there for myself. I'm like, I'm gonna leave this episode in this cliffhanger, and can I deliver next week on this next part that I promised the reader? Because I'm always trying to like promise something awesome for the next time. So can I live up to those promises? We'll find out. Crossing fingers.
Let's talk about this series, and what it is, because it's really cool. You've taken like two big concepts and put them together. One being the using dreams to help Alzheimer's patients,
Yes.
and then the other is a real life heist that really happened.
Yes.
Which is so cool.
Yes. Yeah, and I recommend that as a writer, like because I'm planning some other future ideas for books, and I like to try to come up with two really high concept ideas and then find a way to merge them together. And the more they seem unconnected, and then find a way to connect them, the cooler that is. So that's kind of what I did with the Dream Heist, and it was really fun, and it also allowed that because the bank heist, I followed the bank heist for my plot. So they went to Bangladesh, and then they went to the Philippines, and then they went to Hong Kong. And so they really followed the trail of money that really happened in the story. And so that kind of gave me my plot outline. And then I was lucky because I had been to most of those places, which was really helpful too. I have not been to Bangladesh though, but I had been to Delhi, and I've been to India for a school visit actually. So yeah, I mean, having kind of a basic plot line to help you out with your serial, I recommend if you can have that. Like, okay, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here. Like, not maybe the physical place, but in your mind, like the plot points. And then think, okay, I got to drop this clue here. And this clue needs to be dropped here. And then I can kind of fill out. And then also you're thinking about when your characters are going to be coming in, when those, and which episodes you'll want to bring them into. So I mean, I could do a whole workshop on plotting. I have some YouTube videos on plotting, but I do recommend it even for a serial if you can. But I mean, like the great thing about serials, you can give yourself a little bit more freedom. There's a little bit more leeway. You can go back and edit if you have to. You can pivot if you need to. There's just a lot of more freedom that you have, or you like, okay, I'm going this way, but all of a sudden, oh my goodness, some of the fans really like this one part of the scene. I'm going to go left instead of right. And that's pretty cool. Like you can't do that in a printed novel.
Yeah. Do you plan on putting it in novel form at any point, or are you going to keep it strictly serialized, at least for now?
I think so. I would like to do that. I know my agent is probably going to try to sell the audio rights for it, and we have some film interest in it. So there are a lot of other options out there. Sharing to my producer, things like that. Like there's a lot of other things that you can do with it, which is pretty cool too. So I'm just keeping it really open-ended, see where this takes me. Like I've never done anything like this before. So it's very new for me, but I'm just having fun with it. And that's what I recommend for writers. Like this is a great platform to have fun and just experiment, see what readers like, that you write. Like, okay, try this. I'm like, oh, that didn't really hit. So try this and see if that will hit, and just try to get readers. And that was the biggest thing for me because I have like a very core readership, very loyal. I love them. They're just amazing. But I found they had finished the whole book like super fast. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to have more readers, right? So that's when I had to kind of expand and do advertising. So I did advertising on Facebook. I've started that up. I've never done anything like that before. So it's kind of new territory for me to this level. And so I'm playing around with it. I'm still learning Facebook ads. I'm not a pro at all, but I'm trying to be a pro.
Yeah, there's
And
a lot to get there. It's very
yes, and
overwhelming.
so many things. And I've noticed you've had great interviews with other authors who are like nailing it. I'm like, I need to learn. And so you have some great tips, which is amazing. That's what I love about your channel. So I will definitely be picking up all the tips that you're sharing on your channel.
Yeah, well, I need them too. So I look at that Facebook dashboard for the ads, and I'm just like, whoa, this is over my
I'm
head.
lost.
Do you have a guesstimate for how long you plan on running the serial, or are you kind of letting that see where it goes?
I'm thinking until the summer. It
Okay.
depends. It depends on how I feel about it. But I'm thinking to the summer if I can do 1 to 2 episodes. Right now, one. I have some other projects that I have a revision I need to do on from my agent on a middle grade. And I have another middle grade collaborative project I'm working on that our agents are very excited about that we need to revise. So I have a lot of other like pans in the fire. So trying to juggle them all and still produce a great product is hard. Um, but I would like to maybe try a new serial this summer if I can get my act together and get the book. I have general idea of it, how I want to plot it out, but that would be a long running series too. Could be if the serial like hits, if it does well, I don't know. You just don't know. And then I have another sci-fi thriller that would kind of mesh well with the Dream Heist idea that I have had this idea for like 10 years. It's been percolating in my mind for so long. And I love this idea. Like, it's really good. I think it's good. Now this is gotta write it. Minor detail, right? Minor detail.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had those ideas that I'm like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is going to be people are going to love this, and then I write
Yeah.
like 3 pages, and I'm like, but I don't yet. Like I know I love it, but I
Right.
can't get it there.
Yes. It's just gonna take time.
Yeah, yeah. So I subscribe to your newsletter,
Oh,
and
great. Thank you.
oh, no problem. Yeah, well, it's cool because I have my son. He's only 5 now, but I'm following you because your newsletter also has a section for readers and it has a section for writers. So I
Yes.
follow it for the writer stuff, and then as my son's
Right.
getting older, I can kind of introduce him to your
Yeah.
writing stuff. And like you said, YA is not just for young adults. I read a
Mhm.
lot of YA. I just read Pax a little while ago, which was a young adult book,
Right.
and I follow the Dream Heist. So
Thank
I
you.
am a
Thank
fan.
you.
I am a fan.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But I love that your newsletter does that. It has like a 4 readers section and a 4 writers section. Have you always been doing it that way, or is that more of a
I
newer?
have made a point to try to do it that way every time because I do have a lot, and actually sometimes I do some stuff for teachers because I have a big teacher following because I do so many school events. Normally pandemic, not so much, right? But I travel widely. I've been invited to Korea for because my book was the Morning Calm one of nominees. And so they had flew me out for a multi-school visit when I was out there. I've been out to India. I've been to Canada. I've been all across the United States doing school visits. So I do a lot with teachers, and I love it. So I also sometimes do a little bit with teachers, but I do also a lot of writing workshops for adults. And so I want to make sure that when they read my newsletter, they're getting value for what they're like. There's needs to be a reason why they would want to open my newsletter. And so I need to give them reasons. So I try to do either writing tips like in written form, or I'll try to offer a YouTube video and they get first dibs. They get to see it first before anybody else. And I really love doing that. That's like a passion of mine. So, and then I also try to give like updates on my own writing, and then other books or serials now for Kindle Vella stories that I'm really enjoying that I recommend to my audience that they would like too. So yeah, I do give away sometimes. I have a lot of fun with that, or I'll tell people where my events are, where I'll be at, live events. And lately there's not been very many live events, with the pandemic, but I try to keep them updated on that as well. So that's kind of what my newsletter is for. I try to make sure that every newsletter has value for the readers, so that, because I value their time, if they're going to take my time to look at my stuff, I want to make sure that I'm providing them a service as well.
I noticed you have, I don't remember the name of it now, but I think it was like the Crown Club, which I think is
Yes.
such a it's such a fantastic idea. So it's sort of
Yes.
like your street team almost for your
Yep.
Kindle Vella series. So how does that, how do you make that function? And
So yeah, I have my Crown Club, and they are like, just, I love these guys. They're amazing. They are partly responsible for making Dream Heist do so well. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like they are there and they are so supportive every time. So every Sunday I send them out a newsletter, like their own newsletter. I'm like, hey, it's Crown Club, happy Crown Club Day. And then I give them like insider tips about the episode. I give them the link with the episode, like, hey, here's the latest episode. I will do like fun little games and activities with them. So it's like our small group that we have that, but it's growing. It's a growing group, which I'm thrilled. And so anybody is allowed to join, and they don't have to, they can leave anytime they want, unsubscribe. So it's pretty much a fun opportunity, but it's to help support the Dream Heist right now, and maybe other books in the future. So these
so
guys are amazing.
it's like your fans subscribe to your newsletter and your diehard fans subscribe to
Yes.
the Crown Club. That's so
Yes.
cool. That's an awesome thing.
Absolutely.
I don't have enough fans on my newsletter to divide them into anything yet, but it's a cool concept. I love it.
It is. I
And then
love
do you
them.
provide them in those newsletters with like extra stuff for being your diehards, like I don't know, extra content or
Yes, I do I want to write some extra content for them, but I haven't been very good about that. But that's something actually I really want to provide for them. And so I've been thinking about what to do, and a lot of it's time limited. But right now it's just like insider information, extra fun things like images, pictures of different episodes, my time in those locations. I did a whole series for a while on me, because I was trying to working on a screenplay. So I started working on a screenplay last fall or winter actually, and it's done, but now just revising it. I have so many things I'm doing. It's kind of crazy.
yeah, it
But
sounds like
so I gave them like my journey. Like, this is my journey of writing my first ever screenplay. These are my feelings. This is what I'm learning. This is what I'm having. And so I kind of gave them that. I did not give anybody else that information. So that was really a deep inside look on my personal writing experiences. And then I do what I'm hoping I can provide them more like additional scenes that they have not seen before, that no one gets to read except for them. I want to write those for them. So that's my goal.
so on top of all this writing you're doing, you're also making 2 newsletters a week, which I find the newsletter
Yes.
takes me so long.
Yes.
That's
It's a lot. It's a lot sometimes, but I mean, I feel like they deserve it. Like
right.
they're helping making Dream Heist do so well. And I always want to like give back value for, if they're gonna do something for me, I want to also provide something for them. And it's like a friendship. Friendships go both ways. You have to be there for your friend when they're hurting, and when you're hurting, they're there for you. Kind of that same type of thing.
I love that. I love that philosophy. So you also, I don't know if you run it or if you're just a big part of it, but there's a Discord channel that you have. If you want, I'll put the link in the description for it. I don't know if it's kind of a closed off thing,
No, it's
but
open. Yeah.
it's for readers and writers, right? And it's sort of like a
Yes.
book club where
Yes.
you have these serials that are highlighted. The Dream Heist being one of them, where readers can come in and discuss it. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Did you start it? Is it your Discord
Beth,
or?
yeah, Beth Revis started it, and then me and a couple other authors kind of came in with her on the ground floor, and we're admins behind it, myself including some others, and so we kind of run the boards and kind of keep an eye on things, make sure everything's great. But I mean, everyone's amazing. All the readers are great. There's a mix of readers and there's some writers that write Vella in there, and we talk about there's a part for marketing and sharing those things, and just share your latest episode and your serial, or talk about your writing chat, or you can talk about your favorite stories. And then within each channel of the stories that are featured, we kind of give them like little tips and inside stuff that we have about our stories as we're writing them. We might say, hey, the latest episode is up and it went live, check it out. Just if someone hit like 100 likes, we give them like a little cheer, like great job. So it's just a really great supportive environment. And we had originally made it just for the readers, but we found we had a lot of Kindle Vella writers also joining, and so we wanted to have some channels that they can share stuff to. So that's where those were involved in. And then we have added more serial stories to that channel, different channels as time has gone on. People who have been just really supportive of the boards and are welcoming and just have a really positive attitude. We really want that. We want people who are positive, who are cheering other authors on and encouraging readers to read. Like, we want those kinds of people. So that's kind of how we run it. And so I'll definitely give you the link on that.
No, yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm on there already, but yeah, I can share the link in the description.
Yes, you are. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think you joined 2 weeks ago. Am I right?
Yeah, I heard about it on your YouTube channel. Yep.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad. Yay.
Yeah, it's a really great place for like you said, it's a place for positivity. And I like that based on what you're saying there, it's like you can kind of every author can go on there and
Yes.
find resources, but then to have your story become highlighted on there is from you being a part of that community and interacting and treating it how it should be treated. That's a great way to do it. That's another philosophy. So do you have any tips for a new writer who's thinking about stepping into the Vella world?
Right. Wow. It has become a Vella world, hasn't it? I feel like it has. It's been not even a year, but I feel like we have this whole community behind it, and it's kind of fun. Well, I did a YouTube video, kind of more like really nitty gritty on this. Like, if you're going to write a Vella, there's some tips for you. But I do think it always comes back to the writing first. Writing is the most important. And even now, like looking back on my episodes, like I had to learn too. Like, this is my first serial. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Like, a lot of us were like, some people were experts, but I was not an expert on writing a serial. So I kind of adjusted some of my style halfway through as I was watching readers and stuff like that. So I recommend shorter episodes with either a cliffhanger or some kind of question at the end that would lead the reader into the next episode. And then making sure that your pitch that you have to lead them into the story is concise and clear and really interesting. Like, why should I, like, there's thousands of stories on Kindle Vella. Why should I read your story? So tell me what's so amazing about it. So that's the pitch. And that will be that short little blurb in the story. So yeah, and the good cover, you can't, I'm not an artist, but if you can find a good cover that's amazing, that's helpful. I have gotten lucky with all my covers for the Gilded series and the Prince of the Page. They're illustrated, and I love the cover for, the Dream Heist. So Jessica Corey, she runs her own, I can't remember what it's called, her own cover design. And I'll give you the link to her company, but she's the one that did my cover for me. She did amazing job. So I recommend her 100%. Yeah, she's awesome. Also a traditionally published author that I know from doing events and stuff like that. Good friend.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a resource that everybody needs.
Yeah.
Everyone is always asking about cover designers.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Cool. Do you have any advice for somebody who's already on the Kindle Vella platform, but maybe feels like their story's not getting the reads that they would like it to. As you said, I think you said right there, checking on your cover design and your
Mhm.
little blurb for your story are probably the
Yes.
first two steps you want to take. But is there anything else that they could be doing to try and make themselves stick out, um, or just
Yeah.
feel better about their series? Because sometimes you're
Yeah.
doing everything right, but
I
it just doesn't.
know.
So
And I
you just got
totally
to
hear you on that. Like, I feel I got lucky in that I had a published series already. And so I already had like a group of people who were passionate about my stories and like were able to jump in on it. So I'm very thankful for that. I don't disregard that at all. So I know that I have had that and that helped for sure. So if I was starting from scratch, I to help that series, the Gilded series, I'm thinking back to that time. Like I did a lot of marketing for the Gilded series. And of course I had my publisher was amazing and they put Amazon publishing power behind it too. So I'm like, there is that too. So I take that. I'm very grateful for that. But I recommend being part of communities. That's number one. Forming a group of other authors, like maybe Kindle Vella authors that can support you in your journey too. So you can say, hey, this ad's working and this is why this ad's working. And this is what I'm doing for my newsletters. Can we swap newsletters and like swap stories? Like in my newsletter, I'll share my story. I mean, I'll share your story with my audience and you can share my story with your audience. So you're kind of expanding your readership. Facebook ads, that's very helpful. Doing things on social media is good, but I don't recommend just hammering your audience with like, this is something else from my episode. Like give them other things besides just buy my episodes or, read my book. You want to actually give them a piece of your life too. So I try to, in social media, like try to find ways to connect with my readers more than just my books, like my life or advice or things like that that can help. Um, yeah, I mean, you can try to get your friends and your family to come behind and say, hey, I have this new story up. Can you help support it for this week so it gets more traction and gets more notice? That's really helpful. I have a really supportive family. I'm like, when Dream Heist first came out, I'm like, mom, dad, my brother, sister. I'm like, can you help? Like, this is a brand new thing. No one knows about it. How am I going to get some notice? It needs to get some traction. That can help. Um, you know, those are just some starting points. But sometimes you don't have that. Maybe sometimes you don't have people around you that can support you. So you're going to have to really rely on your newsletter, building your newsletter up. And having a blog or having a YouTube channel or something else, something that's going to bring people in. You can't just wait for people to come. You have to actually actively go out and find them. I got lucky because with the Gilded series, I did a lot of events. So I did a lot of speaking events, and at every speaking event, I had people could sign up for my newsletter. And that's how most of my newsletter subscribers came from, is from my actual events. So I've gotten thousands of people who have signed up because of speaking events I did. So pandemic is tough, but those kinds of ways, try to find those opportunities if you can. And nothing's wasted. Like, don't like every connection you have, you can learn from those people and those connections, and you can build more relationships. And that's so pivotal. I mean, like, I just think about Jessica Corey. She's a really good friend of mine, and she decided to do a cover design business. I would never known about this great company that's making covers if I hadn't known her. So it's just like this like ripple effect. And like we met now. And so now you know me. And if you need something, you can call me. You can. And this is that you can call me or like email me. But that's really important. And like just what you're doing right now is you're making those connections. You're going out and finding people and building those relationships. And that's what's going to help you in the long term. So it's a journey. Like I've been on this journey for almost 10 years, 8 years. But really before that, because when my story was bought in 2012, I started the marketing. Started right up. I started a website, official looking website. I started all that stuff. And that's like a growing thing that you have to do. It takes time. You can't do it all. You do a little bit at a time and you build. And I could probably do a whole workshop on like how to build your career and the steps you need to take, because you need to plan it out and you got to map it out, because you can't do everything at one time. Like, we're all busy. We've got kids, or we've got jobs, or we have like houses that need to be cleaned, or pets that need to be fed, or plants that need to be watered. But so we're all busy. And so you just have to think about, what can you do today to help your career for tomorrow?
I love that. And I think that's a great place for us to end the interview. But before we go, I want you to tell people where they can find you and support you and read your stuff.
Yeah, well, definitely join my newsletter. I would love that. It's on my website, ChristinaFarley.com. So ChristinaFarley.com has all my links. I'm very active on Instagram. That's my favorite place to go. But I'm on Twitter. I'm on everywhere. Oh, and YouTube. I love YouTube. So if you want tips on writing and the writing journey, I always try to bring those out when I'm not on deadline. And so I love doing that, in Facebook, of course. But yeah, I would just love to connect with anyone who wants to connect with me and be a part of your community. That is a complete joy for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And make sure you hit like and subscribe on this video, and
Yes.
then head over on YouTube, type in Christina Farley. It'll come right up. And then hit like and subscribe on that one as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I highly recommend your channel. I've already watched a number of your videos, and they're super helpful, and I'm learning too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.